Vecthar stood on the bridge of the Eternal Reason, watching the small vessel drift through the darkness of space. His scaled hands rested calmly on the command console. The ship ahead was pathetic, really. Barely larger than a cargo hauler, its hull marked with scratches and burn marks. The identification signal said it was human.humans. Vecthar had heard of them. A new species, recently discovered on the outer rim. Small creatures. Soft skin. No natural weapons. They came from a world they called Earth, a planet so dangerous that most coalition members refused to visit it. The humans claimed their world had shaped them into survivors. Vecthar found that claim amusing. His own species, the Varen, were true survivors. They had evolved as the apex predators of their world. Nothing had ever hunted them. Nothing had ever made them run. "Sir, the human vessel is responding to our hail," his communications officer said. "Put them through," Vecthar replied. The screen flickered. A human face appeared. Male, by their standards. Older, with lines around his eyes and gray in his hair. He wore a simple uniform, dark blue with minimal decoration. His expression was neutral, almost bored. "This is Captain Hyen of the transport vessel Taeyong. We're experiencing engine trouble and request safe passage through this sector." Vecthar studied the human. So small, so fragile looking. "Captain Hyen, this is Commander Vecthar of the Coalition Security Force. Your vessel has entered a restricted zone. We need to conduct a standard inspection before you proceed." The human captain nodded slowly. "Understood. We'll prepare for boarding." Something in the human's voice caught Vecthar's attention. Too calm, too accepting. Most species showed some nervousness when Coalition security stopped them. This human showed nothing. "Sir, I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from their cargo bay," the tactical officer reported. "It's shielded heavily. More than a normal transport would need." Vecthar's eyes narrowed. "Captain Hyen, what are you carrying in your cargo hold?" The human's face remained expressionless. "Medical supplies and research equipment. We're transporting them to a colony on the border worlds. Medical supplies don't require military-grade shielding. These do." The human leaned forward slightly. "Commander, I strongly suggest you allow us to continue on our way. We're not a threat to you or anyone else, but our cargo needs to reach its destination quickly." Vecthar felt something unfamiliar stir in his chest. Not quite suspicion. Not quite curiosity. "I'm afraid I can't do that, Captain. Coalition protocol requires inspection of all shielded cargo. Prepare to be boarded." The human closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, Vecthar saw something there he couldn't identify. "As you wish, Commander." The connection ended. Vecthar ordered his boarding team to prepare. He would lead the inspection himself. Something about this situation felt wrong, though he couldn't explain why. The Varen didn't feel fear. That emotion had been bred out of their species millions of years ago. What was the point of fear when nothing could harm you? 20 minutes later, Vecthar stood in the docking bay of the human ship. The air smelled strange, chemical, sterile, wrong. 3 humans waited for them. Captain Hyen stood in the center, flanked by 2 others. One was female, younger, with sharp eyes that tracked every movement of the Varen boarding team. The other was male, wearing an engineer's uniform, his hands stained with grease. "Commander Vecthar," Captain Hyen said. "Welcome aboard. This is Lieutenant Myray, my tactical officer, and Engineer Doyon." Vecthar nodded to each of them. The female, Myray, watched him with an intensity that felt almost threatening. The engineer, Doyon, seemed distracted, his eyes constantly darting to various control panels along the walls. "Show me your cargo bay," Vecthar ordered. "I'd prefer if you didn't," Captain Hyen said quietly. "That's not your choice." The human captain sighed. "Very well. Follow me." They walked through narrow corridors. The ship was old, but well maintained. Everything was clean, organized, efficient. Vecthar noticed something odd. Every door they passed had been sealed with additional locks. Not normal locks. These were emergency containment seals. the kind used for hazardous materials. Captain, why are there containment seals on every door? Vecthar asked. Precaution, Hyen replied. Against what? The human didn't answer. They reached the cargo bay. The doors were massive, reinforced with triple-layered plating. A biometric scanner sat beside the entrance. Captain Hyen placed his hand on it. Nothing happened? He tried again. Still nothing. That's strange, the captain muttered. Engineer Doyon stepped forward. Sir, the system's been locked from the inside. From the inside? Lieutenant Murray's hand moved to the weapon at her side. Who's in there? No one should be, Doyon said. His voice had changed. Now it carried tension. Fear, maybe. Vecthar found it fascinating. These creatures actually felt fear. How inefficient. Suddenly alarms began screaming throughout the ship. Red lights flashed. Vecthar-S communication device activated. Commander, we're detecting multiple ships entering the sector. Krellick's war fleet. They're on an intercept course. Vecthar felt his scales tighten. The Krellicks, raiders, slavers, they consumed other species as food. Even the Varen avoided direct conflict with them when possible. Not from fear, of course. Simply tactical wisdom. Captain Hyen's face changed. The calm mask dropped. What replaced it was something cold? Something dangerous? How long until they arrive? Hyen asked. 18 minutes, Vecthar-S officer replied through the communicator. The human captain turned to Vecthar. Commander, I'm requesting immediate asylum aboard your vessel. Evacuate my crew to your ship? Now, what about your cargo? Leave it. Destroy this ship if you can. But get us off here in the next 10 minutes. Vecthar studied the human. The fear was clear now. All three humans showed it. Their breathing had quickened. Their muscles were tense. But they weren't panicking. They were thinking, planning. What are you carrying in that cargo bay? Vecthar demanded. Captain Hyen looked at the sealed door. Then back at Vecthar. Something from Earth? Something that escaped the research facility? We've been trying to transport it to a specialized containment station, but we've lost control of it. What kind of something? The kind that makes the Krellicks look friendly. Lieutenant Murray interrupted. Captain, if they board this ship, if they open that cargo bay, they'll take it with them. They'll try to use it? I know, Hyen said quietly. Engineer Doyon checked a handheld scanner. Sir, the containment field inside the bay is failing. We have maybe 20 minutes before it breaks. Vecthar processed this information. A dangerous organism. Failing containment. Krellick's raiders approaching. The humans wanted to evacuate. Logical, sensible. No, Vecthar said. All three humans stared at him. We'll transfer your crew to my ship, Vecthar continued. But the cargo comes too. We have containment facilities. We'll secure whatever you're carrying. Captain Hyen shook his head slowly. Commander, you don't understand. This organism, it's from Earth. It evolved in our oceans, in the deep trenches where the pressure would crush your ship like paper. It was accidentally modified in a laboratory. Made worse. Much worse. We have handled biological threats before. Not like this. The human captain stepped closer. Vecthar towered over him, but somehow the small human seemed larger in that moment. Commander, this thing doesn't kill quickly. It infects. It transforms. It turns living beings into factories for making more of itself. And it works on any carbon-based life form. We know because we tested it. We're immune, mostly. Our species evolved alongside things like this. But you? He pointed at Vecthar. You're from a world with no diseases, no parasites, no biological weapons. Your immune system has never faced anything like this. Vecthar felt that strange sensation again. Not fear? Couldn't be fear? But something close to it. A warning. An instinct screaming that this small creature was telling the truth. You should let us stay on our ship, Captain Hyen said softly. You don't want what we're carrying on yours. Vecthar looked at the sealed cargo bay door, then at the three humans. They were afraid. Genuinely, deeply afraid. But they weren't running. They were standing here, trying to warn him. How curious. No, Vecthar said again. You'll evacuate to my ship immediately. All of you. We'll handle the containment situation. That's final. Captain Hyen stared at him for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. On your head, Commander. Don't say we didn't warn you. The human crew transferred to the Eternal Reason quickly and efficiently. Vecthar watched them move through his ship's corridors. There were 12 of them total. All moved with purpose, carrying small containers of personal items and equipment. They didn't look around and wonder like most species did when boarding a coalition vessel. They looked at exits, at control panels, at structural weak points, like soldiers, Vecthar thought. Not like civilian transport crew. Captain Hyen approached him in the main corridor. Commander, my people need a separate medical bay. We need to run constant biological scans. You can use our medical facilities? No, the captain's voice was firm. We need our own space, isolated with its own air recycling system. Why? A young human female stepped forward. She was small, even for their species, with dark circles under her eyes. I'm Ensign Bora, I'm a medic. Commander, we need to monitor ourselves every 4 hours. Check for any signs of infection. If we use your medical bay, we risk contaminating your systems. Vecthar studied her. She looked exhausted, frightened. Infection from what, exactly? From what's in that cargo bay you just brought aboard, she said quietly. Vecthar second-in-command, Subcommander Thax, laughed. It was a harsh sound like rocks grinding together. These creatures are paranoid. They see threats everywhere. It's what happens when you evolve as prey instead of predators. Several of the humans turned to look at Thax. Their expressions didn't change, but something in their eyes did. Something cold and dark. Lieutenant Myray spoke. Prey doesn't travel into space, Subcommander. Prey stays home where it's safe. We're here because we're not prey anymore. Could have fooled me, Thax replied. You're afraid of everything? Afraid of your own cargo? Afraid of the dark? Afraid of silence? Your whole species runs on fear. Yes, Captain Hyen said simply. We do. And that's why we're still alive. Vecthar interrupted before Thax could respond. Ensign Bora, you'll have access to Section 7, Deck 12. It has independent life support. Will that suffice? The young medic nodded. Thank you, Commander. The humans moved to their new quarters. Vecthar returned to the bridge. The Krelix fleet was still approaching, but slowly. They seemed to be scanning the area. Looking for something. The human ship, probably. Vecthar had ordered it destroyed, but his weapons officer reported a problem. The ship's reactor was shielded too heavily. It would take sustained fire to break through. Leave it, Vecthar decided. Prepare for emergency jump. We'll exit the sector before they arrive. Sir, jump drives need 30 minutes to charge, the navigation officer reported. Vecthar checked the time. The Krelix would arrive in 23 minutes. Too close, but manageable. Hours passed. The Eternal Reason jumped away from the sector safely. The Krelix fleet found the abandoned human ship and began examining it. Vecthar watched on long-range sensors as they boarded it. Let them deal with whatever was in that cargo bay. He was reviewing reports in his ready room when Thax entered. The subcommander looked disturbed. Unusual for him. Sir, we have a situation. Explain. One of our crew members, Technician Relkin, is showing strange symptoms. He was part of the team that secured the human cargo. Now he's in medical with a high fever and unusual tissue growth? Vecthar stood immediately. Show me. The medical bay was chaos. 3 Varen doctors surrounded a bed where Technician Relkin lay writhing. His scales had turned gray. Black veins spread across his body like cracks in ice. His eyes were white, rolled back in his head. He was making sounds that no Varen should make, wet, choking sounds. What's wrong with him? Vecthar demanded. The chief medical officer, Dr. Krentok, shook her head. Unknown. His cells are being rewritten at the molecular level. Something is changing his DNA structure. I've never seen anything like it. Can you stop it? I don't know what it is. I can't stop what I don't understand. Vekthar felt that sensation again. That wrongness. That warning. He activated his communicator. Get Captain Hyen to medical immediately. The human captain arrived within minutes, followed by Ensign Bora. They both wore sealed environmental suits. They looked at Relkin through the isolation chamber window. Bora's face went pale. Oh no, what is it? Vekthar asked. Captain Hyen turned to him. That's the infection. The organism from the cargo bay. How did he get exposed? He was part of the team that moved the cargo to our containment facility. Did he touch anything? Did he open any containers? No, everything remained sealed. Bora checked a handheld scanner. It doesn't matter. The organism can survive in microscopic spore form. It can pass through most standard containment materials. That's why we needed specialized shielding. Your shielding failed, Vekthar said. No, Captain Hyen replied. We knew it would fail eventually. That's why we were trying to reach a proper containment facility. But you ordered us to bring it aboard your ship. Vekthar felt something new. Something hot and sharp in his chest. Anger, but beneath it something else. Something primal. Can you cure him? Ensign Bora looked at Relkin. The technician's body was changing. His limbs were lengthening. His scales were falling off, revealing something underneath. Something gray and wet. No, she said softly. Once the transformation begins, it can't be stopped. Your people don't have the antibodies. You don't have the immune response. This organism evolved to attack Earth life forms. We developed resistance over millions of years. You have no resistance at all. How long does he have? Hours, maybe less. Then he'll die. But before he dies, he'll produce millions of spores. They'll spread through your air system. Infect more of your crew. Dr. Krentok stepped back from the isolation chamber. This is impossible. Nothing works this fast. Captain Hyen looked at the Varen doctor. On Earth, we have organisms that can kill a human in hours. Bacteria that eat flesh. Viruses that liquefy organs. Parasites that take over the brain. We evolved in a war zone, Doctor. Every day was a fight for survival against things trying to kill us. This organism is one of millions like it on our world. We learned to live with them. To fight them. To survive them. He pointed at Relkin. You never had to learn. Your world was safe, clean, easy. Thax grabbed Captain Hyen by the suit. You brought this horror onto our ship. You infected us. Lieutenant Myre appeared from nowhere, her hand on Thax's arm. She didn't pull, didn't push, just held his arm in a specific way. Thax released the captain immediately, his face showing surprise. We tried to warn you, Myre said calmly. You didn't listen. An alarm began blaring. Vekthar communicator activated. Commander, we have reports of illness on Deck 7. Multiple crew members showing symptoms similar to Technician Relkin. Vekthar felt his world tilting. Seal Deck 7, no one enters or leaves? Sir, we have 70 crew members on that deck. I gave you an order. Captain Hyen touched Vekthar's arm. The gesture was gentle, almost kind. Commander, sealing won't help. The spores are already in your air system. They're spreading through the ship. Then what do we do? Vekthar heard his own voice. It sounded strange, weak, afraid. The word hit him like physical force. He was feeling fear. Real, genuine fear. For the first time in his life, Vekthar understood what it meant to be prey. Ensign Bora spoke. We need to purge the infected sections. Vent them to space. Kill the organism with hard vacuum and radiation. That will kill everyone in those sections, Dr. Krentok said. Yes, Bora replied. Her voice was steady, cold. It will, but it will save everyone else. Vekthar stared at the young human. She was recommending mass murder, the execution of dozens of people, and she said it like she was ordering lunch. You can't be serious, he said. Captain Hyen met his eyes. Commander, we've been fighting this outbreak for 3 weeks aboard the Taeyong. We started with 80 crew members. We have 12 left. We survived by making hard choices. Brutal choices. We spaced sections of our own ship with our friends still inside. We burned out corridors while people screamed for help. We did these things because the alternative was death for everyone. That's barbaric. That's survival, Lieutenant Murray said. On Earth we have a saying. Kill one to save 1,000. We've been doing this mathematics for a very long time, Commander. Since before we had fire. Since before we had tools. We learned to sacrifice the few to save the many. It's not pretty. It's not noble. But it works. Technician Relkin began screaming. The sound was inhuman. His body convulsed. Something burst from his chest. Something gray and writhing. Ensign Bora activated her communicator. All human personnel, full containment protocol. Stay in your sealed sections. Don't open any doors. She turned to Vekthar. Commander, you need to make a decision. Now, purge the infected decks or lose the whole ship. Vekthar looked at Relkin. At the thing he was becoming. At the humans standing calmly in their sealed suits, waiting for his decision. These small, soft creatures who lived their entire lives in fear. Who had learned to make impossible choices. Do it, he whispered. Sir? Thax looked at him in shock. Purge Deck 7, Vekthar said louder. Emergency protocols. Vent to space. The alarms changed. Became more urgent. Vekthar heard screaming through the communicator. His crew, begging, pleading. Captain Hyen placed a hand on his shoulder. Welcome to being human, Commander. This is what fear feels like. The screaming stopped after 43 seconds. Vekthar counted every second. He would remember that number for the rest of his life. 43 seconds of his crew crying out as the air was sucked from their lungs. 43 seconds of death by vacuum. 70 Varen lives ended in 43 seconds. He stood on the bridge, staring at the display screen. The status indicators for Deck 7 showed red, all life signs gone. The deck was empty, dead, sterile. Captain Hyen stood beside him, still in his environmental suit. You did the right thing. Did I? Vekthar's voice sounded hollow even to himself. Yes, those 70 would have become 700 infected, then 7,000, then everyone. Sub-Commander Thax turned from his console. Sir, we're detecting more infections. Deck 8 now, 12 crew members showing symptoms. Vekthar felt numb. Purge it. Sir, those are your people. I know who they are, Vekthar's voice cracked. Purge the deck. Do it now. The alarm sounded again, more screaming. Briefer this time. The infected were already too sick to cry out for long. Lieutenant Murray approached with a tablet. Commander, we need to talk about containment strategy. This organism spreads through air circulation. We need to shut down life support to the infected areas and create quarantine zones. Do it, Vekthar said. That means dividing your ship into sections. Anyone in an infected section gets sealed in. No exceptions, I understand. Engineer Doyon joined them. He carried a case of equipment. Commander, we need access to your environmental control systems. We can rig localized containment fields, but we need authorization codes. Vekthar gave him the codes without hesitation. 3 days ago, he would never have given a human access to critical ship systems. Now he didn't care. These humans knew how to fight this thing. His people didn't. The next 6 hours were hell. The infection spread to 3 more decks despite containment efforts. Each time, Vekthar gave the order to purge. Each time, he listened to his crew die. By the time the sun cycle ended, he had killed 147 of his own people. The humans worked without rest. They moved through the ship in their sealed suits, setting up containment barriers, monitoring air quality, tracking the spread of the infection. They did it all with cold efficiency. No hesitation. No mercy. Vekthar found Ensign Bora in one of the medical bays. She was running tests on samples taken from the infected areas. Her face was pale, exhausted. How are you doing this? He asked Dot. She looked up at him. Doing what? Staying calm? You're not afraid. None of you are, Bora laughed. It was a bitter sound. Commander, I'm terrified. I've been terrified every minute since the outbreak started. I'm the one who created this thing. I'm the scientist who modified the organism. I thought I was making it weaker, easier to study. Instead, I made it stronger, deadlier. 23 people died in the initial outbreak at the research station, my friends. My colleagues, my mentor, I watched them transform. I heard them scream, and I knew it was my fault. Then why do you keep going? Because being afraid doesn't mean giving up. It means understanding the danger and fighting anyway. She returned to her work. Fear is information, Commander. It tells you what threatens you. Smart people listen to that information. Then they act. Vekthar watched her work. This small human, carrying guilt and terror, still functioned. Still thought, still acted. On his world, emotional trauma like that would require cycles of therapy and recovery. She just kept working. A new alarm sounded. This one was different, lower, more urgent. Dax's voice came through the communicator. Commander, we have a massive problem. The Krelix fleet has found us. They tracked our jump signature. They're entering weapons range in 8 minutes. Vekthar ran to the bridge. The main display showed 6 Krelix warships approaching. Heavy cruisers, each one capable of destroying the Eternal Reason easily. Status of our weapons? Vekthar demanded. Offline? We had to shut down power to 3 decks to contain the infection. The weapons grid was on those decks. Engines? Damaged. The purges cause structural stress. We can barely maintain current speed. We can't jump. Captain Hyen appeared on the bridge. He had removed his helmet. His face was grim. They're hailing us. Put it through. The screen changed. A Krelix commander appeared. The creature was massive, covered in chitinous armor. Its mouth had too many teeth. Its eyes were black and dead. Coalition vessel, it said in a grinding voice. You are disabled. You will surrender. Your crew will be processed. Your ship will be salvaged. Processed? Vekthar knew what that meant. The Krelix didn't take prisoners, they took food. We refuse, Vekthar said. The Krelix commander laughed. It sounded like breaking bones. You have no weapons, no shields, no escape. Why refuse? Because we are coalition. We don't surrender to raiders. Then you die. We will board you in 6 minutes. If you resist, we will kill you quickly. If you don't resist, we will save you for later. The connection ended. Vekthar looked around his bridge. His crew looked back at him. They were afraid. He could see it in their eyes. The Varen had learned fear in the past few hours. Learned it well. Captain Hyen approached. Commander, I have a proposal. Unless it involves weapons we don't have, I'm not interested. Actually, it involves a weapon you do have. The infection. Vekthar stared at him. What? The Krelix are coming to board us? They want our crew and our ship? But we can give them something else instead. Captain Hyen pulled up a schematic of the ship on a display. We release the containment on all infected areas. Let the organism spread through the entire ship. When the Krelix board, they'll take it with them back to their ships. That will kill everyone on board, Dax said. Yes, Hyen replied. It will, but we can evacuate your crew to escape pods first. Most of them. The humans will stay behind to manage the release and make sure the Krelix get infected. You're talking about suicide. I'm talking about taking the enemy with us. Lieutenant Murray joined them. Commander, the Krelix are slavers and murderers. They've destroyed hundreds of colonies, killed millions. If they get this infection, it will spread through their fleet. Maybe through their entire species. They'll be too busy dying to raid anyone else. Vekthar felt his mind reeling. You're proposing genocide. I'm proposing self-defense on a large scale, Captain Hyen said. They're coming to kill us. We're making sure they regret it. Engineer Doyon added, We've already rigged your reactor to overload on a timer. Once the Krelix are infected and back on their ships, the explosion will destroy any remaining evidence and spread the organism further through their fleet via debris. When did you rig the reactor? Vekthar demanded. When you gave me access codes, Doyon said without apology. Commander, we knew this was a possibility. We've been planning our own death since the outbreak started. This isn't suicide. It's tactics. Vecthar looked at the humans. All 12 of them had gathered on the bridge now. They stood calmly, waiting, ready to die. They had known, all along, they had known it would end like this. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. Captain Hyen met his eyes. "Would you have believed us? Would you have accepted it?" "Commander, you've never faced extinction before." "We have dozens of times in our history. Ice ages, plagues, wars, asteroids. We learned a long time ago that sometimes the only way to win is to make sure the other side loses worse." "You're insane." "Maybe," Lieutenant Myre said. "But we're effective." The Krellick ships were closing. 4 minutes until boarding. Vecthar made his decision. Begin evacuation. All Varen to escape pods. Launch as soon as they're full. Navigation. Plot a course away from the Krellick's fleet. "What about you, sir?" Thax asked. "I'm staying." "Sir? If these humans are willing to die to save my crew, the least I can do is understand why." Vecthar turned to Captain Hyen. "Show me how to release the containment." Hyen studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Bora, help coordinate the evacuation. Doyan, prepare the reactor. Myre, set up the final containment releases." The humans moved with practiced efficiency. The Varen crew evacuated in organized groups. Thax argued, but Vecthar ordered him into an escape pod. 300 Varen survived. They launched away from the ship in a cloud of small pods. Accelerating hard away from the Krellick's fleet, Vecthar stood on the bridge with the 12 humans. The ship felt empty now, quiet. 2 minutes, Murray reported. Captain Hyen handed Vecthar a control pad. "This will release containment on all infected decks simultaneously. Wait until the Krellicks have boarded at least 3 sections. Then activate it." "How will I know when?" "You'll know. They're not quiet." The ship shuddered. Impacts. The Krellicks were attaching boarding tubes. "Here they come," Doyan said. He sounded almost cheerful. Vecthar looked at the humans. "Why aren't you afraid?" Ensign Bora smiled sadly. "We are afraid, Commander. We're terrified. But we learned a long time ago that fear isn't about running. It's about what you do while you're afraid." The ship shuddered again, harder this time. Sensors showed Krellick's troops pouring into 3 sections. Captain Hyen looked at Vecthar. Now, Vecthar pressed the control. Throughout the ship, containment fields dropped. Airlocks opened. The infection spread like smoke through the corridors, flowing toward the boarding areas where the Krellicks waited. On the sensors, Vecthar watched the Krellick's troops' life signs. They began changing, dropping. 3 months passed. Vecthar stood in the great council chamber of the Galactic Coalition. The room was massive, designed to hold representatives from 60 different species. Tier upon tier of seats rose toward a domed ceiling painted with stars. At the center, under the dome, stood a single platform. The speaking platform. Vecthar stood on that platform now. Above him, thousands of alien faces looked down. Varen, Thaxiang, Cordite, Velshani. Species from across the galaxy gathered to discuss a single question: should humanity be granted membership in the coalition? The debate had been fierce. Many species argued that humans were too dangerous, too violent, too unpredictable. The incident with the Eternal Reason had been documented thoroughly. 300 Varen survivors had given testimony. The Krellick's fleet's destruction had been recorded by automated sensors. Now it was Vecthar's turn to speak. He looked up at the council. High Chancellor Vexmar, an ancient Velshani, gestured for him to begin. "Honored Council," Vecthar started. His voice amplified through the chamber. 3 months ago, I believed I understood the nature of strength. I was Varen. We evolved as apex predators. Nothing on our world could threaten us. We knew no fear because we had never needed it. I thought this made us strong." He paused. "I was wrong," murmurs rippled through the chamber. "The humans I met aboard the transport vessel Taryang showed me a different kind of strength. They were small, physically weak, fragile, but they survived a nightmare that killed most of my crew within hours. They made decisions that I, as a Varen commander, could barely comprehend. And when death came for them, they faced it with calm acceptance." A Thaxian representative stood. Commander Vecthar, you say the humans made decisions you couldn't comprehend. They killed your crew? They brought a biological weapon aboard your ship. They destroyed a Krellix fleet through biological warfare. These are not the actions of a stable, peaceful species. They are the actions of dangerous extremists. With respect, Counselor, you're wrong, Vecthar replied. Captain Hyen and his crew tried to warn me. Multiple times? They asked to be left alone. They explained the danger. I refused to listen. I believed my technology, my protocols, my species' superiority would be enough. The humans knew better. They had lived with this organism for weeks. They understood it in ways I couldn't. Another voice spoke, a Cordite military commander. They committed genocide against the Krellix. Intentionally weaponized a disease. That violates every principle of the Coalition. They defended themselves, Vecthar said firmly. The Krellix came to kill us, to consume us. The humans used the only weapon available. And yes, it was terrible. Yes, it was brutal. But it saved my crew. It saved me. It stopped the Krellix from raiding that sector for months. How many colonies did that save? How many lives? High Chancellor Vexmar spoke. Her voice was ancient, wise. Commander Vecthar, you have defended humanity passionately. But we must ask, are they safe? Can we trust a species that lives in constant fear? That makes such extreme decisions? Vecthar took a deep breath. Honored Chancellor, I have had 3 months to consider that question. I have studied Earth history. I have spoken with human diplomats. I have learned about their species in ways I never understood before. And I have concluded that fear is not humanity's weakness. It is their greatest strength. Silence filled the chamber. Let me explain. Vecthar continued. The Varen evolved on a world with few threats. We were the apex predators. We had no need to develop fear because nothing threatened us. The same is true for most coalition species. We evolved in relatively safe environments. We built civilizations slowly, carefully, without constant pressure. He gestured to a display screen. Images of Earth appeared. Oceans, deserts, mountains, storms. Humans evolved on a death world. Everything there tried to kill them. Predators, diseases, weather, geological events. Other humans. They lived every day knowing they could die at any moment. And that knowledge, that constant awareness of mortality, shaped them into something unique. The display changed. Images of human history. Ancient battles. Medieval sieges. Modern warfare. Space exploration. Fear made humans cautious. They learned to prepare for threats before they arrived. They developed technology not from curiosity alone, but from necessity. Every tool they created was designed to keep them alive. Fear made them planners, made them strategic thinkers, made them survivors. A Varen counselor spoke, but fear also made them violent. They have fought each other throughout their history, wars, genocides, atrocities. Yes, Vecthar agreed. They have. But they also learned from those mistakes. Human history is full of terrible things. But it's also full of humans trying to prevent those terrible things from happening again. They created laws, ethics, treaties. They struggle constantly with their own nature. That struggle makes them better. The display changed again. This time it showed the 12 humans who died on the Eternal Reason. Their faces. Their names. Captain Hyen, Lieutenant Murray, Engineer Doyun, Ensign Bora, Specialist Jiwan, Pilot Teeman. Medic Yunji, Navigator Hanyul. Technician Sulji. Engineer Junho, Scientist Yuna, Communications Officer Minho. Vecthar's voice grew soft. These 12 humans gave their lives to save my crew. They were terrified. Every single one of them. They told me so. They explained their fear in detail. But they stayed anyway. They faced death knowing exactly what it would cost them. That's not insanity. That's courage. The Varen have no word for courage, he continued. We never needed one. How can you be courageous when you're never afraid? But humans? They have hundreds of words for courage, bravery, valor, heroism, gallantry. Each word describes a different way to face fear and act anyway. High Chancellor Vexmar leaned forward. What are you saying, Commander? I'm saying that humanity's fear is precisely why we need them in the coalition. They understand threats in ways we don't. They prepare for disasters we can't imagine. They make hard decisions that other species avoid. Yes, they're dangerous. But they're dangerous to our enemies, not to us. They're the species you want as allies when everything goes wrong. The Thaxian counselor spoke again. You're asking us to trust a species that weaponized a disease. I'm asking you to trust a species that died to stop that disease from spreading, Vekthar replied. They could have fled, could have saved themselves. Instead, they stayed behind and ensured the threat was contained. They paid with their lives to protect people they'd never met, species they'd never seen. That's not the behavior of a dangerous enemy. That's the behavior of natural protectors. He pulled up another display. A message. Audio only. Captain Hyan's voice filled the chamber. This is Captain Hyan of the transport vessel Taeyong, final log entry. If you're hearing this, our mission succeeded. The organism has been contained. The Krellick's threat has been neutralized. My crew and I are gone. I want it known that we volunteered for this mission. No one forced us. We chose this because it was the right thing to do. We were afraid. Every day, every hour. But we learned something that all humans learn. Fear is just information. What you do with that information defines who you are. We chose to be protectors. We chose to be guardians. We chose to die so others could live. That's what being human means. Remember us not as victims or heroes. Remember us as people who were afraid and came anyway. The message ended. Silence filled the chamber. A Velshani elder stood slowly. Commander Vekthar, you said fear made humans into survivors. Into protectors? But doesn't that same fear make them unpredictable? Dangerous? With respect, Elder, I believe it makes them reliable. A human who tells you they're afraid is telling you the truth? A human who acts despite fear is showing you their character. The Varen never feel fear, so we don't understand its power. When we encounter a real threat, we have no framework for processing it. The humans taught me that lesson painfully. Vekthar looked around the chamber. I have a final piece of evidence. Permission to play a recording from the Krellick's fleet? The High Chancellor nodded. The display changed. It showed the interior of a Krellick ship. The creatures were screaming, dying, transforming. The infection was spreading through them like fire. And in the background, barely audible, a Krellick's commander was speaking. These humans, they're demons. They brought death with them. They infected us knowingly, willingly. They're monsters. The recording ended. Another voice played. This one was human. Ambassador Sora, the new human representative to the coalition. The Krellicks call us monsters. Maybe they're right. Maybe we are monstrous when threatened. But we're only monsters to those who try to harm us. To our friends, to our allies, we're the most loyal species you'll ever meet. We remember kindness. We repay trust with trust. We defend our allies as fiercely as we defend ourselves. That's the choice before you, honored council. You can see us as monsters, or you can see us as protectors. The choice is yours. Vekthar stepped forward. Honored council, I vote for humanity's inclusion. Not despite their fear, but because of it. They understand danger. They prepare for threats. They sacrifice themselves to save others. These are qualities we need in the coalition. These are qualities that will make us all stronger. The High Chancellor called for a vote. Lights appeared above each council member's seat. Green for acceptance. Red for rejection. Slowly, the lights began to appear. 3 minutes until reactor overload. Vekthar sat on the coal bridge floor with 12 humans who had chosen to die. The ship trembled around them. In the distance, through the hull, he could hear sounds, terrible sounds. The Krelliks were screaming as the infection took them. Why did you accept this mission? Vekthar asked. The question had been building in his mind. You knew it was a death sentence. Why volunteer? Captain Hyen leaned back against a console. His eyes were distant. My family lived on Research Station Meridian. My wife. 2 daughters. They were visiting me when the outbreak started. I was off station, returning from a supply run. By the time I got back, the station was gone. They had to sterilize it from orbit, burn it all. My family died in the fire. He looked at Vekthar. I had nothing left to lose, but I had something I could give. I could make sure this organism never reached another station, never killed another family. Lieutenant Murray spoke next. I was a colonial marine. Fought in the border wars against the Raskin Raiders. Lost my entire unit when they bombarded our position. I was the only survivor because I was trapped under rubble for 2 days. When they pulled me out, I was broken, couldn't sleep, couldn't function, couldn't do anything except remember my friends dying. She smiled sadly. This mission gave me a purpose again. Something worth dying for. Engineer Doyon checked his scanner, monitoring the reactor overload. I'm a coward, he said simply. Always have been, afraid of heights, afraid of the dark, afraid of confined spaces, afraid of open spaces. My whole life I've been afraid, but I'm a good engineer. When they asked for volunteers to transport this organism, I thought maybe just this once I could do something brave, even if I was terrified the entire time. Ensign Bora wrapped her arms around her knees. I told you already, I created this thing, my mistake. My responsibility to fix it. I couldn't fix it, so I could at least make sure it didn't hurt anyone else. One by one, the other humans shared their stories. A pilot who had crashed and killed his co-pilot. A medic who had lost patients to a plague. A navigator who had miscalculated and caused a colony ship to arrive too late to save a dying world. Each one carried guilt. Each one carried fear. Each one had chosen to come anyway. Vekthar listened. On his world, people who carried such trauma would withdraw, would heal, would be protected. These humans took their trauma and turned it into fuel. You're all broken, he said quietly. Yes, Captain Hyen agreed. That's humanity for you. We break easily, but broken things can still be useful. A broken sword can still cut. A broken shield can still block. A broken human can still fight. 2 minutes until overload. Tell me about Earth, Vekthar said. Tell me what made you this way, Lieutenant Murray laughed. It was a genuine sound. Where do we start? Earth is a nightmare world, Commander. It's beautiful, but it's trying to kill you every second. We have storms that can destroy cities, earthquakes that crack continents, volcanoes that block out the sun, diseases that kill billions, animals that evolved specifically to hunt us, and we survived all of it. How? By being more stubborn than everything that wanted us dead, Doyon said. Earth taught us that you don't survive by being the strongest or the fastest. You survive by refusing to give up. By adapting, by learning, by working together, Captain Hyen continued. Humans have a long history of impossible situations. We've been trapped in sieges where we ate rats and shoe leather to survive. We've fought wars in frozen wastelands where the cold killed more people than bullets. We've marched across deserts that should have been impassable. We've sailed oceans. In wooden boats, not knowing if there was land on the other side. And every time we were terrified. But we went anyway. Why? Vekthar asked. Why go forward when you're afraid? Because going forward is the only way to survive, Murray said. Fear tells you there's danger. But courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and acting anyway. Every human child learns this. We teach them about people who faced impossible odds and won. Not because they were fearless, but because they were brave. Ensign Bora added, We have a story from Earth history. A battle called Thermopylae. 300 soldiers held a pass against an army of thousands. They knew they would die. They went anyway because it would give their people time to prepare. We have dozens of stories like that, hundreds. They're part of who we are. 1 minute until overload. The ship shook. The Krelliks had stopped screaming. Sensors showed their life signs changing, transforming. The infection was working faster on them than it had on the Varen. Maybe because they were genetically more compatible with Earth-based organisms. Maybe just luck. I don't understand your species, Vecthar said. You're small, weak, fragile. You have no natural weapons. No armor, no speed. By all logic, you should have gone extinct millions of years ago, but instead you conquered your world. Built cities, developed technology, traveled to the stars. How? Captain Hyen smiled. Because we're terrified, Commander. Every human knows they're fragile. We break easily. We die easily. So we built tools to make us stronger. We created weapons to make us dangerous. We developed medicine to keep us alive. We built ships to carry us away from threats. Everything we've ever created came from fear and the refusal to accept that fear as a limitation. You turned weakness into strength. No, Myray corrected. We accepted our weakness and built strength around it. There's a difference. The Varen evolved as apex predators. You never needed to be afraid, so you never learned to overcome fear. Humans evolved as prey. We were hunted by everything. But we learned to hunt back. We learned to make the predators afraid of us. 30 seconds, Vecthar looked at each human face. Young and old, male and female, all different. All the same in their calm acceptance of death. I will tell them, he said. I will tell my people what you did, what you sacrificed. I will make sure the Coalition knows. Tell them the truth, Captain Hyen said. Don't make us heroes. We're not. We're scared people who did what needed to be done. Tell them that fear isn't weakness. Tell them that running from danger isn't the only response. Tell them that sometimes the prey becomes the predator. Tell them we were human, Bora added. That's enough. 20 seconds. An alarm sounded, different from the others. Vecthar-S communicator activated. Fax's voice came through, distorted by distance. Commander! We're launching a rescue drone. It can reach you before the overload. Get to the emergency airlock. Vecthar looked at the humans. They looked back at him. Go, Captain Hyen said. No, Commander, you need to survive. Someone has to tell the story. We don't matter. The information matters. I won't leave you. You're not leaving us. We're staying behind. There's a difference. Hyen stood and pulled Vecthar to his feet. Listen to me. We made our choice weeks ago. We accepted death. We're at peace with it. But you still have work to do. You need to tell the Coalition about this infection, about the Krellick's response, about what happened here. That information could save millions of lives. 10 seconds. Lieutenant Murray grabbed Vecthar-S arm and pulled him toward the airlock. He tried to resist, but she was stronger than she looked. Humans were always stronger than they looked. In our culture, we have a tradition, she said as they ran. When soldiers die in battle, someone has to carry their names forward. Be our name carrier, Commander, remember us. Honor us by living. They reached the airlock. A small rescue drone was docking. Vecthar could see it through the window. 5 seconds. Captain Hyen arrived behind them. He opened the airlock door and pushed Vecthar through. Tell them we were afraid. Tell them we came anyway. That's what being human means. 4 seconds. The airlock sealed. Vecthar pressed against the window. The humans stood on the other side. They weren't crying, weren't panicking. They just stood there, watching him. Waiting for the end. 3 seconds. Engineer Doyon waved. It was a small gesture, almost casual. 2 seconds. Ensign Bora smiled. A real smile. Peaceful. 1 second. Captain Hyen saluted, a military salute. Crisp, precise, respectful. 0. The ship exploded. White light filled everything. The rescue drone's shields engaged, protecting Vecthar from the blast. He felt the shockwave hit, felt the heat, felt the pressure. Then darkness, silence. The rescue drone's engines activated. It began moving away from the expanding debris field. Vecthar pressed his face against the window. Behind him, the eternal reason was gone. Just fragments and fire spreading through space. The Krellick ships were burning too. The infection had spread through their fleet. They were dying, and somewhere in that fire, 12 humans had ceased to exist. Vecthar felt something wet on his face. He touched it. Water. He was crying. The Varen could cry, but they rarely did. There was never a reason. Now he had a reason. I will remember, he whispered to the darkness. I will tell them, I promise. The rescue drone carried him toward his surviving crew, toward safety, toward the future, but part of Vecthar stayed behind in that fire. The part that had never known fear, the part that had never understood sacrifice. That part died with the humans. What remained was something new, something that understood what it meant to be afraid and to act anyway. Something that had learned, in the worst possible way, what courage truly was. The drone's communication system activated. Thax's voice came through. Commander, you're safe. We're retrieving you now.